Nathan Reeves checked his watch for the fifth time, the diamond-studded Patek Philippe glinting under the soft amber lighting of Elysium, Boston's most exclusive restaurant. 45 minutes. That's how long he'd been waiting for his date, a woman he'd never met in person, but had been corresponding with for weeks through an exclusive dating service that catered to high net worth individuals. The sommelier had already opened the $800 bottle of Bordeaux that Nathan had pre-ordered. It was breathing nicely, reaching its perfect drinking temperature while the empty chair across from him seemed to mock his situation. "Would you like to order, sir, or would you prefer to wait a bit longer?" The waitress appeared at his side, her voice gentle and free from judgment. Nathan looked up, meeting warm hazel eyes that belonged to a woman with chestnut hair pulled back into a neat bun. Her name tag read Alyssa B. "I think it's becoming clear that I've been stood up," Nathan said with a tight smile, trying to mask his embarrassment. At 36, he'd built a shipping empire worth over $400 million, yet he couldn't secure a simple dinner date. "Perhaps I should just settle the bill for the wine and be on my way." Alyssa Bennett bit her lip, her eyes scanning the restaurant. It was a Friday night, and every table was occupied by Boston's elite. She'd worked at Elysium for 3 years while pursuing her master's degree in education, and she'd seen plenty of awkward situations, but something about the genuine disappointment in this man's eyes touched her. "That's an exceptional vintage to leave unfinished," she said, nodding toward the wine. "Our chef prepared a special tasting menu tonight. Perhaps you'd still enjoy it. Being alone doesn't mean you can't have a wonderful evening." Nathan studied her face, finding no pity, only a sincere attempt at kindness. "You know what, you're right," he gestured to the chair across from him, "though I admit dining alone feels particularly pathetic tonight." Alyssa glanced toward the maitre d', who was busy dealing with a party of celebrities who had just arrived. "I get a break in 15 minutes. If you wouldn't mind some company, I could join you for a few minutes just so you don't have to stare at an empty chair while enjoying your appetizer." The offer surprised him. "I wouldn't want to impose on your break. It's no imposition. Besides," she lowered her voice conspiratorially, "the staff meal tonight is leftover risotto from yesterday. Your appetizers would be a definite upgrade." For the first time that evening, Nathan's smile reached his eyes. "In that case, I'd be honored to have your company, Alyssa." True to her word, 15 minutes later, Alyssa returned in her uniform, but without her server's apron. She slipped into the seat across from Nathan, who had already received his first course, a delicate scallop crudo with citrus and microgreens. "This looks amazing," she said, eyeing the artfully arranged plate. Nathan pushed it toward the center of the table. "Please share it with me, I insist." "Oh, I couldn't. Consider it a thank you for saving me from a completely wasted evening." As they shared the appetizer, conversation flowed more naturally than Nathan had experienced in years. Alyssa told him about her studies, her goal to become an elementary school principal, and her side hobby of pottery making. Nathan found himself genuinely interested, asking questions and listening attentively to her answers. "So what about you?" she eventually asked. "What keeps Nathan Reeves busy besides being stood up at expensive restaurants?" he laughed. "Is it that obvious that's my name? The reservation card has been on the table all night," she pointed out with a grin. "Fair enough. I run Reeves Maritime. We handle specialty shipping for high-value cargo. Art, antiquities, sensitive equipment, that sort of thing." Alyssa's eyes widened slightly. "Wait, Reeves Maritime, the company that transported the Degas collection for the Museum of Fine Arts last year." Nathan nodded, surprised by her recognition. "You follow art transportation news?" "I volunteer at the MFA on weekends. The security measures for that exhibition were incredible. I remember reading about the custom container systems your company designed." The conversation shifted to art, and Nathan found himself fascinated by Alyssa's knowledge and passion. Her break stretched from 15 minutes to nearly 40 before her manager cleared his throat loudly while passing their table. "I should get back to work," she said reluctantly, standing up. "Enjoy the rest of your meal, Mr. Reeves. Nathan, please, and thank you for salvaging what would have been a thoroughly depressing evening." As she walked away, Nathan realized he hadn't thought about his failed date once during their conversation. Throughout the remainder of his meal, Alyssa was professional but warm, attending to his table with a quiet efficiency that spoke of years of experience. When she brought his check, he added a tip that exceeded the cost of the meal itself. "This is too much," she said, eyes wide as she saw the amount. "It's not nearly enough for the kindness you showed a stranger tonight," he replied. Then, taking a business card from his wallet, he wrote his personal number on the back. "I'd like to properly thank you with dinner sometime at a restaurant where you're not working, if you're interested, of course." Alyssa hesitated, studying the card. "I make it a policy not to date customers." Nathan felt a pang of disappointment but nodded his understanding. "That's a sensible rule." "But," she continued with a small smile, "I suppose exceptions can be made for those who have been stood up. It would be cruel to let it happen twice." A week later, Nathan stood outside a small Italian bistro in Cambridge, far from the upscale establishments he typically frequented. Alyssa had chosen the location, insisting that Salvator's had the best homemade pasta in the city. Dressed in dark jeans and a cashmere sweater rather than his usual tailored suit, he felt strangely nervous, more so than he had for his failed date at Elysium. Alyssa arrived right on time, her chestnut hair falling in loose waves around her shoulders. Freed from her server's uniform, she wore a simple blue dress that brought out the flecks of blue in her hazel eyes. "You found it," she said, looking pleased as she approached. "My driver was skeptical about the location, but I assured him I had it on good authority that this place is special." Alyssa laughed. "Your driver, I should have guessed you wouldn't take the tea." The restaurant was cozy and bustling, with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. The owner greeted Alyssa by name, leading them to a corner table and insisting on bringing them his special appetizers before they even looked at the menu. "I take it you're a regular," Nathan observed. "I've been coming here since I moved to Boston for grad school. Salvator lets me practice my terrible Italian with him, and in return, I help his daughter with her English homework." Throughout dinner, Nathan found himself captivated by how Alyssa engaged with everyone around her, joking with the busboy, asking after the waitress's new baby, complimenting the chef when he emerged from the kitchen. She moved through the world with an easy warmth that made everyone feel valued. "You're staring," she noted after their plates had been cleared. "Sorry," he said. "I'm just not used to seeing someone so connected to the people around them. In my world, interactions tend to be more transactional." "The shipping magnate doesn't have many friends," she teased gently. "Associates," he corrected. "Partners, employees, it's different." "Sounds lonely," she observed, then immediately looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry, that was presumptuous." "No, it was accurate," he admitted. "Success has a way of insulating you. People see the wealth, the company, the reputation, rarely the person." "Well, I don't know anything about shipping or millions, but I'm pretty good at seeing people," Alyssa said, "and I'd like to get to know the person behind the impressive business card." By the time they shared a tiramisu and finished a bottle of Chianti, Nathan realized he hadn't checked his phone once all evening, a first in as long as he could remember. Walking Alyssa to her apartment in a modest building near Harvard Square, he felt a strange reluctance for the night to end. "I had a wonderful time," he said as they reached her door. "Me too. It was nice to be on the other side of the table for once." "Could we do this again?" he asked, surprising himself with how much her answer mattered to him. Alyssa considered him for a moment. "I'd like that." "But Nathan, I should be clear, my life is pretty straightforward. I work at Elysium to pay for school, I volunteer, I make pottery in a shared studio, and I live in a one-bedroom apartment with noisy pipes. Your world and mine, they don't exactly overlap." "Maybe they should," he said quietly. She smiled. "Maybe. Good night, Nathan." She rose on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek before disappearing inside. Over the next few weeks, Nathan found himself drawn into Alyssa's world. They visited art galleries where she knew the security guards by name. They attended a pottery exhibition where her small collection of bowls was featured. They took walks along the Charles River, and he discovered parts of Boston he'd never explored despite living there for years. For their fourth date, he took her to the harbor where Reeves Maritime's flagship inspection facility was located. As they walked through the high-tech building where art and antiquities were carefully examined, secured, and prepared for transport, Nathan realized he'd never brought anyone here before, not even potential investors. "This is incredible," Alyssa said, eyes wide as she observed a team carefully creating an ancient Greek sculpture. "All this happens before anything even gets on a ship. The actual transportation is the simplest part," Nathan explained. "It's the preparation, the documentation, the security systems that make us different. We don't just move objects, we protect history." Later, as they stood on the private dock watching the sunset over the water, Alyssa turned to him. "You really love what you do, don't you?" "It's not just about the business." Nathan considered this. "I've never thought about it that way. My father started the company with one boat and a dream. When he died, I was 24 and determined to build it into something he would have been proud of. Somewhere along the way, I stopped thinking about why I was doing it and focused only on doing it better. And now," she asked, "now I'm standing on my dock with a beautiful woman who's making me question everything I thought I knew about what matters," he said, his voice softening as he looked at her. When he kissed her, the setting sun casting them in golden light, Nathan felt something shift inside him, as if a locked room had finally been opened. As spring turned to summer, their relationship deepened. Nathan rearranged meetings to attend Alyssa's graduation ceremony when she received her master's degree. She helped him select pieces for his sterile penthouse apartment, bringing warmth and personality to spaces that had previously been showcases rather than living areas. But their different worlds occasionally created tension. At a charity gala where Nathan was being honored for his company's philanthropic work, Alyssa overheard two women discussing her. "She's his waitress," one whispered to the other. "Can you imagine? He could have anyone and he's slumming it with the help." Alyssa had excused herself to the bathroom, fighting back tears of humiliation. When she returned, Nathan immediately sensed something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked, drawing her away from the crowd. "Nothing." "It's fine," she insisted, plastering on a smile. "Alyssa," he said firmly, "talk to me." When she finally told him what she'd heard, his face darkened. "Who was it? I'll have them removed." "No," she interrupted. "That would only make it worse. Besides, they're not entirely wrong, are they? I am a waitress. You are way out of my league. Maybe we've been fooling ourselves thinking this could work." Nathan took her hands in his. "The only fool here is anyone who can't see how extraordinary you are. I don't care what they think." "But I care," she admitted. "I care that I don't belong in your world, that I'm always going to be the outsider who doesn't know which fork to use or which designer is acceptable." "Then we'll create our own world," he said simply. "One where none of that matters." That night, after they returned to his penthouse, Alyssa remained quiet, lost in thought. Sitting on his balcony overlooking the city lights, she finally spoke. "I received a job offer today, elementary school principal at Westridge Academy in Brookline. It's everything I've been working toward." "That's wonderful," Nathan exclaimed. "We should celebrate." "It is wonderful," she agreed. "But it also means I'll be even more firmly planted in my world. Early mornings, modest salary, working with children. Meanwhile, you're expanding Reeves Maritime to Europe and considering buying that yacht you mentioned." Nathan fell silent, suddenly understanding her concern. "You think our paths are diverging. I think they were never converging in the first place," she said gently. "We've been in this beautiful bubble, but reality always intrudes eventually. What if I told you I've been reconsidering my priorities?" he said, moving to kneel before her chair. "The expansion, the yacht, they were plans I made before I met you, before I realized what was missing from my life." "I would never ask you to change your dreams for me," she said. "You haven't asked for anything. That's part of what I love about you, Alyssa. You've never wanted my money or status or connections. You just wanted me." She blinked, registering his words. "Love," Nathan smiled, taking her hand. "Yes, love, I love you, and if loving you means finding a balance between our worlds, then that's what I want to do." Tears filled Alyssa's eyes. I love you too, but I'm scared that's not enough. It's everything, he insisted. The rest is just details. As summer progressed, they navigated their differences with honest conversations and compromises. Nathan scaled back his work hours to spend more time with Alyssa as she prepared for her new position. She gradually became more comfortable in social situations with his business associates, winning many over with her genuine interest and intelligence. In August, Nathan surprised Alyssa with a trip to the coast of Maine, renting a secluded cottage on the water. On their second evening, as they walked along the beach at sunset, he stopped and turned to her. "I've been thinking about what you said about creating our own world," he began, "about finding a place where we both belong." "I remember," she said, smiling as she took in the peaceful scene around them. "I found a property," he continued. "A house halfway between your school and my office. It has a garden for you and a home office for me. There's even a detached studio that would be perfect for your pottery." Alyssa's eyes widened. "You're asking me to move in with you?" "I'm asking for more than that," he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. As he dropped to one knee on the sand, Alyssa's hands flew to her mouth. "Alyssa Bennett, you've shown me what truly matters in life. Not success or status or wealth, but connection, compassion, and love. Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" Inside the box was a ring unlike any Alyssa had ever seen, a modest-sized diamond surrounded by small sapphires that matched the blue in her eyes. Set in a band that she recognized immediately as hand-crafted by her favorite artist from the Pottery Cooperative. "You remembered," she whispered, touching the unique design. "I remember everything about you," he said. "So what do you say? Will you marry me and help me build a life that combines the best of both our worlds?" Tears streaming down her face, Alyssa nodded. "Yes, yes, I will." The wedding took place the following spring at the Museum of Fine Arts, where Alyssa had volunteered for years. In a touching gesture, Nathan had arranged for Reeves Maritime to sponsor an education program at the museum, providing transportation for underprivileged schools to visit the collections. Their ceremony was an elegant but intimate affair that truly reflected their merged worlds. Salvatore catered the reception, serving his famous pasta alongside gourmet offerings. Alyssa's pottery students created personalized favors for each guest. The staff from Elysium, where they had first connected, were invited as guests rather than servers. As they shared their first dance as husband and wife, Nathan held Alyssa close, whispering in her ear, "To think I almost canceled my reservation that night when I realized I was being stood up." "And I almost didn't offer to sit with you," she replied. "Sometimes the best things happen when plans fall apart." "I never believed in fate until I met you," he said, spinning her gently under the twinkling lights. 5 years later, Nathan sat in the audience of Westridge Academy's auditorium, their 3-year-old daughter Emma on his lap and their infant son James sleeping in his carrier beside them. On stage, Principal Alyssa Reeves was presenting the school's new arts initiative, funded in part by the Reeves Family Foundation that the couple had established after their wedding. After the presentation, as families mingled in the school's new gallery space, showcasing student artwork, Nathan watched his wife move through the crowd with the same warmth and genuine connection that had captivated him that first night at Elysium. "Daddy, is Mommy coming home with us now?" Emma asked, tugging on his tie. "Yes, sweetheart, Mommy's coming home with us." As if hearing her name, Alyssa looked up and caught his eye across the room. Her smile, still as bright as ever, sent the same flutter through his heart that he'd felt the first time she'd sat across from him at that restaurant table. Later that evening, after the children were asleep in their rooms, Nathan and Alyssa sat on the porch swing of their home, the perfect balance between his desire for quality and her preference for comfort. "I got a call from Marcus today," Nathan said, referring to his COO. "The London office is fully operational. We can officially say Reeves Maritime is international." "That's wonderful," Alyssa said, leaning against his shoulder. "Your father would be so proud." "I was thinking," Nathan continued, Now that things are stable with the expansion, I might step back a bit more, take a more advisory role. Alyssa sat up, looking at him carefully. Are you sure? You've worked so hard to build the company. I've built something else that matters more, he said, squeezing her hand. Besides, I've been thinking about that educational shipping program we discussed, creating specialized services for museums and schools. It would be a perfect blend of your world and mine. I love that idea, she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. The museum director was just telling me how prohibitive transportation costs are for many of their educational initiatives. As they discussed possibilities, their conversation flowing easily from business to family to dreams for the future, Nathan marveled at how complete his life had become. The man who had sat alone at that restaurant table 5 years ago, surrounded by wealth but deeply isolated, could never have imagined the richness that awaited him. What are you thinking about? Alyssa asked, noticing his contemplative expression. I'm thinking about how getting stood up was the best thing that ever happened to me, he replied. And how grateful I am that a kind-hearted waitress took pity on a lonely millionaire. Alyssa laughed, the sound still his favorite melody. It wasn't pity, you know. Even then, I saw something in you, something real behind the expensive watch and tailored suit. And what do you see now? He asked, genuinely curious. She reached up to touch his face, her eyes full of love. Everything I've ever wanted. A partner, a father to our children, a man who understands that true wealth has nothing to do with money. As the evening stars appeared above them, Nathan held his wife close, knowing with absolute certainty that no business success, no financial achievement could ever compare to the simple joy of building a life with someone who loved him for himself, not for his fortune or his status, but for the person she had seen when no one else was looking. In the end, it wasn't about merging two different worlds. It was about creating a new one together, one built on understanding, compromise, and a love that had begun with an empty chair and a shared plate of scallops. And in that world, both Nathan and Alyssa had found what they truly needed, not just success or security, but